Gordon Chang, of course, the great Asia expert, and also Fred Fleitz, the great foreign affairs expert. Thank you both for being here. Gordon, let's get right to you if we could. What are you hearing are coming from the talks?
Well, right now, we don't know what's going on. But clearly, this talk of de-escalation, I think, is not in the interest of the United States. We got to remember that our tariffs are there as a remedy for the theft of U.S. intellectual property. China steals about $500 billion a year of U.S. IP, as well as for its increasingly predatory trade practices. So if we get rid of our tariffs, we won't have any remedy, and the Chinese are going to continue their predatory trade practices and their theft of our IP. So I hope that we hang tough until we see something really happen. Remember, the Chinese chief negotiator, Vice Premier He Lifeng, was the guy who negotiated the January 2020 Phase 1 trade deal, which China almost immediately dishonored. So this guy does not have a good track record with us, and China, certainly over the course of decades, has never honored a trade deal with us.
You know, Fred, President Trump, we saw some of those comments that he put out that John Huddy was referring to, and he threw out the idea of 80% tariffs, which is lower, of course, than what they have been talking about so far and what's been implemented so far. What do you make of that, not just from an economic standpoint, but really from a political strategy, Fred?
Well, President Trump knows that when China was admitted into the free market about 25 years ago when it joined the World Trade Organization, there was an assumption this would lead to political and economic reforms. But as Gordon just mentioned, this didn't happen. China has exploited trade, it's stolen property, and it is basically engineered an enormous transfer of American wealth to China. It has an enormous trade surplus because it is an export-driven economy that survives by cheating on trade and stealing our intellectual and our military secrets. President Trump knows this. That's why he has been so tough on China. And you can see with the rising unrest in China right now, it's having an effect because all these factories in China, these millions and millions of workers, they depend upon this unfair trade. And we're going to have a settlement to stop this theft of American trade and American intellectual property.
Yeah, and that is, of course, a biggie. That is a huge aspect of this. Gordon, too, and Fred knows this all too well. It's been interesting because in the last few days, there have been protests within China, and that's extraordinary. I mean, the world needs to know that when I heard that, I had to do a double take because to see people protesting within the country, explain why that's so significant, Gordon.
Well, it's significant because China's export sector is in distress. Even before President Trump took the oath of office for his second term, Chinese export-oriented factories, especially those in the South, were in trouble. They basically did not have enough orders to remain profitable. But with President Trump's tariffs, many of them have gone out of business. They're not paying wages to employees, and that's why we're seeing all these protests. What we should be looking at are protests against the banks, which have just started, according to some reports. And this is important because it means that smaller loans are going into default. Smaller financial institutions, therefore, have liquidity problems. They can't make all of the withdrawals that are demanded. And that will shake the Chinese financial system if they continue. The regime has the ability to stop the protests. And we'll see in the next week or two whether it actually is able to get people off the streets.
Yeah, we'll see. And of course, they've had a history of clamping down on them big time, as both of you know all too well. Well, let's see what happened with these talks today. This is really fascinating to see what kind of progress can be made, not just for U.S. and China, but it means something for the world, obviously, too. Both of you, thank you so much. Gordon and Fred, really great to have both of you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.